Hi everybody, welcome to this first Wood Virtual Careers Talk. Thank you everybody for taking the time to have a look. We had ideally hoped to do this with you all in schools, where you could have done a live Teams chat, but unfortunately, of course, everyone's working from home and homeschooling at the moment, so we can't do that. So today we have pulled together some of our early careers group who are going to talk through what they do in Wood, how they got to where they got to, the career choices they made, and what they chose at school. The whole point of this, we have been discussing for a long time how we can help pass on our knowledge in Wood to people like yourselves who are close to making decisions for what you want to do in the later half of your schooling career and potentially what you want to do at university. So that's why we're doing this today. You can just move on to the next slide, Elaine, please. So yeah, my name's Tony Brady. I didn't introduce myself there. I'm BD Director. I'm based in Aberdeen with Wood in the Operations Services area. We talked over the event. What we'll do is we'll have about 10 minutes from each of the speakers, and they'll come from a range of disciplines from across the business. You can see there wind, water, electrical, and some process mechanical as well as solar. And they'll tell you about their careers and what they've done to date. What I'll also do is just give a little bit about Wood, and I guess it's more context about why we are very passionate about this. So if you can flip on to the next slide, please. Aline, thank you. So some of you may know Wood from your parents, or you may have heard of Wood before. Wood Group, as we used to be, and you may know us as a business that was very heavy into oil and gas engineering. That was where we were, and up until about 3 years ago, I would say about 90% of our business was oil and gas, and very little was out with that. So we made a decision about 3 years ago as a business to transition into the more sustainable energy, in the energy transition. You've heard that term mentioned. So now, as a business, oil and gas accounts for about 35% of our business globally, and we have around about 25% in processing chemicals. We have about 25% in renewables, and the rest is in life sciences. So as you can see, we've got a much wider base of what we do, excuse me, in our energy portfolio. We are very much in Wood. We're about a legacy business. We're all very much about leaving the world a better place than we found it. And so everything that we do is around about trying to be sustainable in all of energy creation. So we do still have oil and gas, but we're working on oil and gas and, for example, how you could electrify offshore assets, decarbonize. But there's a large part of our business now is looking at wind, looking at solar. You'll see a lot in news and hydrogen creation. So the whole ethos of Wood as a business is around about sustainability and what we can do to try and improve the energy creation and to make the world a better place than we found it. So that's a bit of context of what we are. We're 45,000 people across 60 countries in the world, and we have a very diverse group of people on the call again today. So one of the reasons that we wanted to do this, and we're passionate about getting people into helping us on our journey of sustainability, is to get people who are early in their careers, so got some diversity of thought. They're curious about working under the STEM subjects, so maybe curious about sciences, or curious about engineering, or curious about the environment and what they can do. And we'd like to just introduce some of our speakers now who can tell you about what they've done and maybe help you form some career choices. So I think without further ado, I'll stop talking and I will pass over to Katrine Black, who works in our wind division.
Hi. I hope you're all well. My name is Katrine and I'm a renewable energy consultant at Wood. I'm based in Glasgow. I'm originally from the Highlands. An interesting fact about me is that my family allegedly descends from pirates. So I've worked at Wood for about 3 years now. Like almost everyone else in the office, I'm working from home at the moment. My job specialises in onshore and offshore wind farm projects here in Scotland and around the world. My journey to this position has not been a typical one. I've had two main jobs in my life so far, so the job I do now and the job I did just after I left school. So don't worry too much if you're not sure what you want to do as a career right now. I left school when I was 16 at the end of 5th year. I had 4 hires. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I had an interest in graphic communication at the time. So I started a 3D design apprenticeship with an oil and gas company in Aberdeen. So this was a 4-year apprenticeship and it involved using AutoCAD and Inventor software. I would create 3D models and drawings of subsea structures for oil and gas projects. So in that job, I worked in the drawing office and I worked closely with engineering teams that were doing the design of the structures. So this was a really good job, a great opportunity, and I stayed with that company for 9 years. But after a while, I decided that I wanted to work in renewables. And with Scotland leading the way in onshore and offshore wind, I thought this would be a really good opportunity to get into the wind industry. So during my apprenticeship, my employer put me through college and university part-time, and I studied mechanical engineering. So I started with an NC level at college, and then I did an HNC, an HND, and then the degree at uni. The apprenticeship was a really great way to gain work experience, earn an income, and get the degree level qualification all at once. So about a year after completing my degree, I left my job in Aberdeen and started a full-time master's at Strathclyde Uni here in Glasgow. I picked a course that offered a placement, and I did that placement with a renewable energy company to gain some experience in wind and solar projects. After I completed the Masters, that's when I started working for Wood. So my job at Wood is to help companies that want to invest their money in wind farms understand the technical risks of the projects that they're investing their money in. So I get to be involved in all stages of projects, from planning, engineering, construction, once they're up and running. So I need to be aware of any significant issues with the projects, and I must be able to clearly communicate these issues to my clients, because that's what they're really interested in. So an example of a project risk might be transportation of large wind turbines to sites. So hopefully, as you can see behind me, these are pretty huge structures. Take a lot of careful planning to get them in place. So things to consider are like, how do you get the big turbine parts to site on country roads? Are there boats big enough to transport parts to the offshore sites? What are the ground conditions like, both onshore and offshore? Has there been any opposition from local communities towards the project, which could delay things? So in my role, I work closely with experts at Wood in all areas. So we've got wind turbine specialists who know all about the mechanical process of converting wind into electricity. And they can name every model of wind turbine out there. We've got environmental experts who ensure that wind farms are environmentally friendly and focus on planning and permitting stages of wind farms. We've also got civil and structural engineers, so they understand the ground conditions and the steel and concrete structures that the wind turbines sit on. So you might have seen some of the projects that my colleagues and I have worked on. So there's Whiteley Wind Farm just south of Glasgow. So that's the UK's largest onshore wind farm. Or you've maybe seen an offshore wind farm from your local beach, or you've maybe seen some of the wind turbine parts being transported to the harbours before they are loaded out to the wind farms. So to do this job, I use my computer every day. I use Microsoft Word and Excel the most. I write various reports of all types. I'll write reports that highlight the risks of the wind farms. Sometimes we write reports that present how a wind farm is performing, so how much electricity they are generating. If a wind farm isn't performing as expected, we will investigate that and present the reasons why it's not performing to our clients. The school subjects that have helped me the most are English, which helps with report writing, reading documents, communicating with clients. Maths and physics help me understand the engineering and the money side of projects. And graphic communication definitely helped get my apprenticeship job in the first place. So one of the perks of this job is travel. A part of my job involves going to visit wind farms to inspect them. So either while they're being built or while they're operational. So while inspecting a wind farm under construction, we'll check things like whether the construction teams are being safe, is the construction going to schedule, are the construction team following proper procedures when installing the wind turbines. And at operational wind farms, we need to check things like whether wind turbines are working okay, are the roads and access tracks okay, and is the site generally safe. So as well as going to wind farms in Scotland, I've been to wind farms in Ireland. I've got colleagues that have been to sites in Sweden, Jordan, Spain, and even Australia. So with onshore wind farms being located in the countryside, you generally get to see a lot of places that you might not typically visit. I do really enjoy my job. I like being part of a young industry. It's evolving quickly, which keeps things interesting. I enjoy being part of the energy transition and helping with the country's targets for carbon reduction, and it's great to be contributing to the fight against climate change, which is quite a focus at the moment. So I hope this has given you a quick insight into a career in the wind industry in Scotland and how you could get there yourself. Thanks.
Thanks, Katrine, that was great. I'm just going to share a video now with you from Nancy, who's not been able to be with us today. She's got other engagements, and she has pre-recorded her synopsis with us, which I'll share with you now.
Hi there, and welcome to my virtual careers presentation. My name's Nancy Stone, and I'm a water expert. So my job at Wood is I'm a principal hydrogeologist. I work in the water management team, and I've been in my job for about 10 or 11 years now, so quite a long time now. Fun fact about me, I have previously been on stage with Elton John in my previous sort of life or job as a musician, so quite different from what I'm doing now, really good. When I was at school, I think my career aspirations were, honestly, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I definitely wanted to do something interesting, and there just seemed to be so much on offer, really. I did work experience as an archaeologist. I was also working really hard at music at that time. And yeah, I really didn't know what I was going to end up doing, that's for sure. Subjects I studied at school. So I had a mix between sciences and arts, really. So I ended up with A-levels in chemistry, biology and music. By that time, I was at a specialist music school, and I was playing a lot of classical music at that time. So that was where I thought I was going at that point. I thought I was going to go off and be a musician. I then got to the point of applying for university, and I very nearly went to music college at that point. I had an offer for 2 music colleges, and also as a kind of backup, I'd also applied to do natural sciences and geological sciences at University College London. The reason for picking this, I thought it was a good backup option just in case, just down the road from the Royal Academy of Music, which is where I thought I was going to study. I had a bit of a change of heart at that point. I think I was 17 or 18 and thinking, actually, do I just really want to go from music school straight into music college? And I actually ended up accepting my university place and rejecting the music colleges. I went off to do geology at UCL in London. I also studied at the same time in my spare time at the Royal Academy of Music. So I was doing both things in parallel. I finished my geology bachelor's. That was all really good. Enjoyed that a lot. Yeah, after that, I then did go off and do a postgraduate at Royal Academy of Music in music, performance and teaching, which was really great. But I realised at that point that I actually did really enjoy doing the science side of it, and I really missed it. And I didn't want to be a musician after all. So finally, I then went off to do my 3rd degree at Birmingham, where I did a master's in hydrogeology. Really, I think it was kind of luck more than anything else. NERC were offering scholarships at that point to do hydrogeology. It wasn't something people were very much taking up, and it was just an opportunity that was available. Turned out brilliantly, because actually it's been a great sort of career choice in terms of the variety of work that you can do as a hydrogeologist. And when I left uni, I had 4 job offers before I even graduated. So lots and lots of different choice of work at that time. So since then, I've really mainly worked in consultancy in the UK, working in a sort of similar job to where I am right now. But I also do have quite a strong interest in the international development sector, and I have quite strong links to sort of the NGO world. I volunteer my time quite regularly for a water charity called Just a Drop, and I've previously volunteered for WaterAid as well. I've lived in Ethiopia for 6 months, and I went back to East Africa for another 3 months. So I've done really a lot of different things with being a water expert. So yes, really good choice if you're interested in either traveling or just generally interested in the environment and our world around us, and the way that rivers work, and the way that we can all live, you know, in harmony with our environment. So what I do at the moment in my role at Wood, I'm actually going to change my background to show you if I can do this. I'm working an awful lot on lots of river projects, particularly this one. This is the River Itchen. So interested in these amazing chalk streams that are very well protected in our country, and how water company abstraction nearby may be affecting flows. As part of the work we're doing, we're trying to work out how to get flows back to being more natural again, to help improve the ecological conditions for salmon and trout that live in the river. So yeah, really interesting work at the moment, all about chalk rivers. So I hope that was a good introduction to what life's like as a water expert. But please do get in touch if anyone had any other questions or would like to find out more. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Nancy. Up next, we've got Kalani.
Thanks, Elaine. Yeah, so my name's Kalani Ajisef. I'm 24 and I'm from the northeast of England, and I currently work in the northeast of England too with Wood. I'm a graduate electrical engineer, and I've been at Wood since September 2020. So like all of you's learning at home, that's pretty much my life at the moment, just working at home. I haven't actually been to site yet, so there's a lot of my colleagues that I haven't met. So it's weird adapting to all of that. But fortunately for me, I have been to sites up and down the country on some kind of vital projects that Wood have. So an interesting fun fact about me, in 2018 and 2019, I actually won the Constructors Championship for Formula One as a Formula One engineer. So I was at the winning team in 2018 and 2019. Pretty much a lot about me during the stages of my career. It's changed a lot. So whilst I was at school, when I went into school in year 7 in secondary school, I wanted to be a solicitor. I'm not quite sure why, but it was something that kind of appealed to me. And then I kind of transitioned into year 9. Year 10, I wanted to do marketing. So I wanted to be part of a business development unit for some companies and do the marketing side. And then it wasn't until I was starting to come to leave school that I kind of realised that my strengths were in the physics and mathematics whilst I was at school, and I tried to play on my strengths. So I decided to look into an engineering route. But whilst I was doing my year 11, my dad's a tradesman, so on the weekend I worked a few jobs with him. So I decided that I wanted to be an electrical technician. So that's why that was my plan from there on forward. So I went to college then, and I went and done a BTEC level 3. So that was in England. That was kind of a main thing to do if you wanted to become an apprentice or trying to get down the technician route. So I did that for 2 years at college. And it wasn't until the back end of the 2 years at college that I started getting a really good kind of a really good representation for what Formula One was and how you become a Formula One engineer. So that kind of was my new kind of career aspiration, was to become an engineer within Formula One. So I realised I needed to go to university. So my idea was to go and do a BEng, which is a bachelor's in electrical and electronic engineering. And then I studied that, and while I was studying, I've had a multiple of different jobs. So I've had around 6 engineering jobs before I started Wood, and this was pretty much me not knowing what I wanted to do. They were all electrical or electronic engineering roles, but this was me kind of finding my feet and understanding what different sectors have to offer. And believe it or not, if someone says they're electrical engineer, depending on what company they're at, there's a big difference. So I worked in the defence sector for a little bit. As I said, I worked in race sports. I've worked at marine engineering companies. I've actually worked as a consultant from a university and a safety company, and also a pigment company, which is a chemical plant. So the way I got into all these kind of all these experiences was just through college, through university, and just applying myself outside of that and looking for jobs. And then this is kind of why my career aspirations have changed a lot. So I'm only 24 now, and it was only probably last year that I found my feet and understood what sector I wanted to go into, what job role I wanted to do. And before that, I wanted to be a Formula One engineer, as I've said, a solicitor or working in marketing. And now I realise that I want to be a principal electrical engineer within kind of the sectors that Would work in, which can be oil and gas, or upstream or downstream, and so on. So what is it that I actually do? Some people kind of say it's a bit of a dark art, electrical engineering, but essentially the overall of my title is to execute electrical discipline engineering activities within a budget and a schedule. So what does all that kind of really mean? So this is anything where we've got clients and we've got any sort of electrical supplies or any electrical engineering that needs doing. So this could be concepts, front end engineering development, technical studies, and kind of detailed design. So anything that our clients will come to us, this could be on oil rigs, offshore, or anything like that. I would have to kind of take responsibility of the electrical activities on there. And the way that we kind of make sure I'm doing this correctly is we'd agree with budget with a client, and we'd also agree a schedule, so a time limit that I would do these activities in. And it's all just working to them goals essentially on each different project. So the best way to kind of think about electrical engineers, imagine you've got a house. So you would have an oil refinery, which is a pretty much a simple way to put it is a house, but times 1,000, say. And what you have is everything that you plug into your wall, so your kettle, electric oven, or your lights. We would call these loads. So essentially what we'd have was a lot of loads, and we'd have a brownfield or a greenfield site. So a greenfield site being we're building a new refinery. A brownfield site is essentially we've got an original refinery and we're adding on to it. So anything that we're kind of adding there, any loads, any electrical equipment, I would find a way to get the power to that equipment wherever it is safely, and also within different efficiency tolerances. So there's a lot of engineering drawings that I've got to do to define specifications, and then there's also a lot of calculations around the loads and around cables and so on. So imagine that you could have some cables underground, cables above ground. All these tolerances kind of change how these cablings are working. So yeah, there's a lot of understanding about power demands and the loads, etc. And pretty much what this will relate to at school for everyone at school is physics. So any of you that are kind of quite into physics, or you find that you're strong with maths, I know a lot of you probably don't like maths or physics, but some people will be able to see that they've kind of got a natural talent, and it's one of their preferred kind of subjects. Well, these are the kind of subjects that I kind of built on from leaving school into college, into university, and it's just all getting a higher level of knowledge to get me in the position that I'm in today. And as I said earlier, I didn't quite know what I wanted to get into until last year. So what I would suggest is just kind of going into different sectors, trying to get as many jobs and just experience the world over the next coming years. Try and have a plan, and you'll find that your plan keeps on adapting over the time, but making sure that you're kind of keeping on a path and trying to progress your knowledge or experience will kind of get you in the path that you want, where you want to be. So if anyone's got any kind of questions about electrical engineering or anything else that I've spoken about, maybe subjects I did, so my BTEC level 3 at college, or electrical and electronic engineering at university, or any of the jobs, defence sector or motorsports or anything like that, I'm sure someone can relay them questions onto me. And have a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks, Kalani. Next, we've got Zoe talking about process engineering.
Hi everyone, yes, my name is Zoe and I'm a graduate process engineer with Wood. I've not really been with Wood for very long. I just started in September last year, so I'm very early on in my career. So I'll probably focus more on when I was at school and uni and kind of how I got to where I am now. And then at the end, I'll just give you a rundown of a couple of things I've done with the company so far. But before I get into it, I should probably also mention that as well as being a full-time process engineer, I am also an international athlete. I am a 400-meter runner and I run for the Great Britain team. Actually, when I finished university, I took 3 years completely out of engineering to focus on athletics full-time. But I realized that I was missing engineering far too much. So that's why I started to look for a job again. And I was lucky enough to get this position at Wood. So now I'm an engineer by day and an athlete by night. But I guess what you're actually interested in is how I got into engineering. So going back to school, I was never sure what I wanted to do. I didn't know what career I wanted to end up in. I just knew what subjects I liked and what subjects I didn't like. So the subjects I liked were maths and sciences. I really like working with numbers and I like the problem solving aspect. So I just really got excited doing those subjects. I didn't really like arts or history or English because I just struggled to get engaged in those subjects and they just didn't interest me so much. So I always knew that I was going to do something down the sciencey route. When we were choosing subjects, again, I picked them based on what I liked. So I took English out of breadth, really, and I took PE to satisfy the athletic side of me. But the subjects that I were really interested in were like maths and chemistry and physics, and those are the one that I took on to my final year at school because I just really enjoyed doing them. When it came time to look at past school, applying for university, I wasn't really sure again what I wanted to apply for. And it wasn't until one of my teachers at school suggested engineering as an option. And honestly, I'd never considered that before. I think I wasn't really aware of what engineering was. I was only aware of the subjects I'd done at school. So again, I liked physics, so I thought maybe I would be a physicist. So I looked into engineering and actually I thought it was right up my street. There were so many different branches of engineering that I'd never heard of before. And, it uses these scientific principles to apply them to everyday problems. And I really liked that. I like to see how we could use science to solve problems. So I realized it was something I wanted to do, and I realized that chemical engineering was probably the right branch for me. Chemical engineering is basically about using maths and science to manipulate stuff to form useful products out of less useful products. So it's kind of manipulating energy streams, manipulating mass streams, and getting something useful out of it. So I applied to do chemical engineering at university, and I went to the University of Aberdeen and did a master's degree, which is 5 years because I'm in Scotland. And I really enjoyed it. I think one thing that was quite useful about going to Aberdeen was for the first couple of years you do general engineering. So although I did chemical as my main degree, I got some electrical courses and mechanical courses and got a little bit of everything really just to have a wider understanding. And I think that's been really useful for me because in the industry, you talk to people from all different disciplines. We all have to work together. So it's quite nice to have a bit of background so you know where they're coming from and you can understand it a bit more. And I think a lot of people as well found it quite nice to have exposure to other disciplines because they actually sometimes thought, hey, the discipline that I've signed up to do, it's not necessarily the one I enjoy the most. So it gave a bit of flexibility really to change your mind and what you wanted to do. But for me, I did enjoy chemical engineering and it was the right choice for me. So I stuck with that throughout. Some of the subjects that we do, you do maths all the way through. We would do some fluid dynamics, looking at fluids and the energy and the mass streams of that. Later on in the years, we did some more specific subjects, so things you might actually go into industry for. So there was things like biochemical engineering, which wasn't as interesting for me because I was never really involved in biology, but a lot of people really enjoyed that. And we also did course like oil and gas processing, which I guess is a bit more specific to what I do now because I'm based in Aberdeen and a lot of that is oil and gas related. So I really enjoyed it. It wasn't an easy degree, definitely, but it was mentally challenging. And that's what's so great about it. You don't get bored. It's always satisfying to look at real world problems and see how you're going to come up with a creative solution to fix it. So yeah, I definitely made the right decision there. when I was at uni, I had a couple of summer placements just to try and get a bit of exposure to the industry. The first summer placement I did actually was the same time that there was a bit of an oil and gas downturn, so there wasn't really much out there. So I spoke to someone I knew at Maersk Oil and just asked if they could basically put my CV on the desk of the right person. And I ended up doing a voluntary placement with them over summer. And that was really beneficial for me because I managed to like follow around one of the process engineers, and process engineer is like a branch of chemical engineering, I should say. And I got to see what they did in their day-to-day activities. And, you know, it was very busy. It was very fast-paced. It was very exciting. I think the fact that I volunteered as well set me up quite well for getting future placements. And the following summer, I got a different placement with an oil and gas company called ConocoPhillips, and this was a structured placement. This time I worked in the health and safety department, and it was all about process safety awareness. So you hear about a lot of major accidents, not just within the oil and gas industry, but with all industries. And it was all about focusing on lessons learned and how important safety is to engineers and how it really needs to be at the basis of everything we do, because, you know, engineering is such an important job, and we need to make sure that we get it right and we have the right attitude to it. But so those were two very different placements within the same industry. And I think what it showed me was that it was an industry that I would definitely be interested in working in. You know, it was always interesting, it was always exciting. There was a lot of diversity in tasks that you had to do. And I do know that oil and gas gets a bit of a bad rep at the moment. You know, obviously we're all about clean energy now, but I'm very much of the opinion that it's us as engineers that are going to have to find innovative solutions to help us in this energy transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. And I think being part of this industry just puts me in such a good place to be part of that. So I'm really proud to be doing the job I am. And I think it's going to be an exciting few years when we transition a bit more. But anyway, so that's kind of how I ended up where I am. Like I said, used to do athletics full time, but I missed engineering too much. So I started to apply for roles, and I was lucky enough to get this position. And I've been with Wood for about half a year now. I guess I've been involved mainly on one project since I started, which is a brownfield, like Kalani said, an old existing project that we're making modifications to. As process engineers, we get involved really early on in the project because we kind of define everything. We define the process and define the changes that need to be made. So for this particular project I'm working on, it's about decommissioning certain parts of a gas plant because the conditions that they have right now aren't what they used to be. You know, the flow rates are a lot slower, the compositions have changed, and we're kind of looking at how can we make this process efficient for the conditions we're experiencing today. So as process engineers, we ask ourselves a lot of questions. So stuff like, what equipment do we not need anymore? If we're going to retire certain bits of equipment, where are we going to divert the gas to? If we're going to divert the gas, can the route that we want to divert it down, can it handle the flow? You know, is it safely designed for that sort of new load? Will the gas still meet specifications that we need if we're removing certain pieces of equipment? And if not, do we need to add new equipment to the process? And also things like, okay, we've got a design that works for our current conditions, but how will this design cope with future predictions? So there's lots of exciting questions really that we get to work on. And some of the things I've been doing have been addressing these questions. So I've been working a lot with piping and instrumentation diagrams, which is a process engineer's bread and butter, really. It's basically a really detailed diagram of the process. It almost maps it out. So I've been working a lot with these diagrams, and I've been marking up equipment that we want to retire and marking off all the isolations that we're going to do. I've also been looking at some of these other questions. So I've been looking at a lot of gas lines that we're going to divert gas down, and I've been doing studies and calculations to see if the lines we want to divert them down are safe, if they can handle the flow, and if not, you know, what changes do we need to make? And I've been making those sort of recommendations. So I am really early on in my career, and this is just one project that I've been doing, and I don't think I've even scratched the surface of everything it is that process engineers do. So these next few years for me are definitely going to be a learning curve, but I do really enjoy it, and I do think if you're that way inclined, process engineering can be a very rewarding career, and I would definitely recommend it for you. But I guess that's just a kind of quick summary of me and what I do. And if you've got any questions, I would be really happy to answer them. And I'm sure someone will explain how to get the questions to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. That was great. Pass over to Holly now.
Hi everyone. So as Elaine said, I'm Holly, and I'm a graduate mechanical engineer within Wood. So like Zoe and Kalani, I just started at Wood in September, and I would be working in the Glasgow office if we were in offices at the moment. I graduated university back in June, so it's really not been long at all, and I've just went straight into working. My fun fact is that I was on Team Scotland for cheerleading, so not quite as impressive as Zoe, but I was meant to compete at the World Championships, but this didn't go ahead because of COVID. Just to give you a bit of background on me and how I got to this point, so I went to school in Perth in Scotland. At school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, like quite a few other people have said. So up until my final year, I was just sort of still exploring what I wanted to do at school. I did think that I might want to get into something design related, so I'd considered things like graphic design, or perhaps architecture. I just really enjoyed GraphCom at school, which is sort of using CAD and technical drawings, as most of you might know if you are studying that. So I really enjoyed sort of the engineering drawing aspect of that. I thought at this point though that I would just take a wide range of subjects and ones that I was good at and that I enjoyed. So for my hires, I took maths, English, physics, GraphCom, and geography. So I just kind of wanted the basics of maths and English. Physics was my best science, so I went ahead with that, even though I didn't know I was going to get into engineering. I noticed that I didn't really enjoy English-based classes. I was okay at them. I wasn't great, but I just didn't really enjoy it. And I noticed that I was quite good at maths. So I kind of like knowing that there was a certain answer to things, and which is what maths gives you. But I still had a creative side to me as well. So when I looked into degrees to do with maths, I wasn't really that interested in the careers that could come out of it. I still wanted to have that creative side to me. So I did want something a bit more practical while still using maths. Luckily for me, I ended up doing better in my exams than I had expected. So when I started looking at courses for university, I did have quite a good choice. My mum had just mentioned to me one day about my granddad being an engineer and sort of briefly explained what it was, but I wasn't really sure. I started looking into it a bit more and it sort of made me consider engineering more. I went along to like university open days, sort of got a better idea what it was about. And I kind of realized that it was something that would give me something practical by designing everyday equipment, but also using maths and science to understand how it works. So I managed to achieve the grades I needed to get into uni for this, so I went ahead with applying. And I managed to get unconditional offers. So throughout my final year of uni, I didn't really have to worry too much, but I still wanted to be at school. So I went ahead and I studied 2 advanced hires. So I did advanced maths and advanced applied maths, which is statistics. So if you were considering getting into engineering, I'd really recommend doing advanced maths if you can, because my whole first year of university, I covered all the maths I needed to know for that specific year. So that meant I could concentrate more on my other subjects and also just enjoying my first year of uni. I'd also say don't be disheartened if you don't get your grades in 5th year. It's very easy to retake courses in your 6th year. And once you decide what you want to do at uni, that obviously gives you an opportunity to go back and try something else. So I decided to go ahead with studying mechanical engineering at university, and I did a master's in this, which is 5 years in Scotland, as Zoe said. I did this at the University of Aberdeen, same as Zoe, and it was good, as she mentioned, because the first 2 years we got to study general engineering, so that did give us a bigger insight into what the other kinds of engineering is. And when you go into 3rd year, you could then choose to change courses if you really wanted to, so that did give you the option, but I did stay with mechanical. I kind of decided on mechanical because I wasn't great at chemistry, and to be honest, I didn't really study it much at school. I only did it at a standard grade level, and I wasn't really as much into electronics. I liked seeing sort of the physical machinery and how that worked. That was more interesting to me. At most universities, you can also mix engineering disciplines, which is something that you could always consider. So you could do mechanical and electrical together. I had a lot of friends in my course who did that, and they really enjoyed it. in my later years at uni, we decided we wanted to take on more real life projects. So I took a course which let us design different projects. So one of those was an electric generating speed bump. So this was sort of something really interesting that I never thought would involve mechanical engineering. But yeah, so we mixed with different disciplines, and it sort of gave us a real life situation where we were put into a team and we had to come out with an end product and design. So that was really interesting. While at university, I didn't actually complete any internships. I focused more on my extracurricular stuff. So I joined sports teams. I became part of the committee for the sports teams. So this sort of added to my CV and things. When it came to my final year, I spent a lot of time applying to jobs and attending interviews. I was a bit concerned because I hadn't had an internship. And I also enjoyed quite a lot of the project management side of things rather than the really technical specialized stuff. So the thing I was looking for in a company was really something that would give me a wide range of industry experience rather than a really specialized niche part of the industry. I thought consultancy like Wood might be a good fit for me. It would involve a lot of interaction with other companies and more management-based kind of engineering. It's also a company, as everyone said, that's in the oil and gas industry, but it is moving towards renewables. So I like that aspect of it as well. I didn't want to just be stuck to just the oil and gas sector. So I'm now a graduate engineer with Wood. I had to start this job online from home, which was a bit different, but I am really enjoying it, and I can't wait to get into an office. So I've just started managing my first project, which has been really exciting. This involves me managing both our clients who we're providing equipment packages for, but also the suppliers that we're buying the equipment off. So it's a lot of managing, speaking to different people, having lots of meetings, but it's really exciting getting to meet all these different people. The main goal as a mechanical engineer is to get the equipment package to the client's site, whether that be onshore or offshore, to the best standards we can, following industry standards and as safely as possible, and obviously within our time and cost budgets. I'm also working on a big project for BP, which is involving the introduction of a new oil field called Seagull. This is in the North Sea, and we're sort of doing the engineering on board a nearby oil platform. So it's sort of linking up those oil wells to this nearby platform to sort of extend its lifetime. Within my career now, I'm just sort of looking forward to get more experience through different projects within Wood. It's not just oil and gas and offshore. I've also been doing projects for an onshore gas refinery, so that's been really exciting as well. I'm also looking to get my chartership started, so that should take about 4 years. So I'm doing that alongside my work. And I'm also hoping to hopefully get to travel with Wood in the future when things will allow. I guess one point I want to say is that you shouldn't be put off doing engineering if you're a girl. I know it seems a bit strange to some people, but as much as there's a lot of boys in engineering, there is a lot of girls getting into it. And by the time you all get into your careers, there'll be even more. And I really enjoy it. And the best thing you can do is just do something you enjoy. I wouldn't worry about choosing your subjects. As you can see, you can always change what you want to do. Even speaking to all the other graduates at Wood, we've all taken different routes to get where we are now. So yeah, just use this time to explore what you think you might want to do. I know it's a bit difficult during COVID. You won't be able to go to events and things like that, but just reach out to people who you think you might be interested in their career, and they can hopefully give you a bit of advice. I'm sure Elaine's going to pass on our contact details, so feel free to get in touch with me, whether it's about mechanical engineering or just anything really to do with your careers. So yeah, that's everything from me, and I hope you enjoy your final years of school, and hopefully engineering might be something you think about. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Next up, we've got Andreas.
Hi, thank you, Elaine. Yes, Elaine mentioned my name is Andreas Blanco. I work for Wood in the renewable energy side. I work closely with Katrine. But I belong or I work for the solar renewal side. I do a lot of work on the relation to solar project, and also I'm doing quite a lot of work on energy battery storage recently. Just same as you can have small batteries, I work with quite bigger ones. For fun fact, I think I have so many fun facts that my life is full of fun facts. So if you can see from my accent, I'm not from Scotland, unfortunately. I'm from Venezuela, which is far away in Latin America. Back in the year, I did mechanical engineering, not knowing what I wanted to do. I actually, when I finished school, I was not sure what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do an engineering career. However, my school advisors, they were completely against the idea of me going for an engineering degree because my track record in math, physics, chemistry, and all of that, it was not showing they were quite good. So they were actually advising me to go into some other areas. But for me, I'm always been an intrigued person. I always thought that engineering was something that I could potentially excel. So I decided to go to mechanical engineering. Don't ask me how I got into the uni, but I did. Back home, normally the uni time is 5 years to finish your degree. I did in 7, which is not ideal. So it took a lot of me and commitment to finish uni. When I finished mechanical engineering, it got to a point that I didn't know why I wanted. Well, first of all, I knew why I choose mechanical engineering, but I didn't know what to do now. So back home, most of the mechanical engineering work on the oil and gas industry or heat and air conditioning. And for me, that was not anything of interest. So I kind of was quite inclined to go into renewables. And actually, my dissertation in my mechanical engineering degree was related to a solar project in how to electrify a rural village by using a combination of solar technology alongside generation diesel gen plants. So when I finished uni, for me was okay. I wanna take a year gap, and I decided that I wanted to travel around the world. So for some reason, I ended up in England, firstly down south in Bournemouth. If you ask me the reason, it's a bit funny because I landed there because I wanted to surf. Apparently, back there, they were building an artificial wave park, which was actually built on the beach. So that was the main reason why I decided to come to the UK. For one thing to another, that never got built. I never got to use my, at the time, bodyboard. Never surfed in the UK, so I was left here doing nothing. So I said, well, it's time for me just to get up to speed to try to get work. So unfortunately, it was really difficult because I was under the whole visa situation that perhaps for you guys is not relevant but for foreigners is a massive challenge to get to work in the UK. So I could see that the opportunity was not coming through. So I decided the best option for me was trying to get further education, and the reason that I wanted to do a master degree. But the money that I had with me is been gone through that year that I was not doing anything in the UK, so I decided to apply for a scholarship. Unfortunately, my grades weren't that great to show that I was quite good material for a scholarship, so I pretty much had to beg. Unfortunately, the Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, they had a scheme that they were offering scholarship for countries, underdeveloping countries or countries in conflict, in which Venezuela classified for the two, or even worse. So I was lucky enough to get that scholarship. I did a master in science in renewable energy engineering. So from them, kind of all of my life changed quite dramatically. After I finished uni, I hit again that to find work it was a bit difficult, but fortunately I was able to get a job with a small company in Sterling, in which gave me a huge opportunity for me to start getting to know the market in the UK, the technology a bit more, and also to put everything that I have learned through uni in practice. So I did a lot of work in Scotland and around in England. I proudly designed the first solar farm ever built in Scotland in Fife. And from then, I have been working in several industry. I have now more than 10 years of experience solely in solar development, construction and operation, as well as in getting into the battery side. One of the reasons that I joined Wood, it was I wanted to get exposure on getting projects around the world. I think Wood has given me that opportunity to use my experience and my knowledge for projects that you don't normally see in the UK. And the reason that I have been able to travel quite a lot around the world and supporting projects that have a really positive impact on communities. And that's one of the things that I really take pride of what I do. Is through engineering, I'm able to support community, and through renewables, I also able to have a positive impact. I think as Zoe was saying, in terms of energy transition, I'm one of those persons that I strongly believe that we need to have fossil fuel gradually working together for the better of the humanity, because I don't believe that we can go from one point to another so drastically. So I still believe that fossil fuel is going to be a wave of electricity source, but we together has to work together to make it more efficiently. And so my full-time work with Wood is as consultancy. Most of the time, I also work quite a lot with other team. With Katrine's team, I do quite different works in terms of supporting them for the energy storage bit, and also do a lot of work with the electrical engineering team. And in overall, I support teams across the world within Wood. And that's kind of my passion that I have nowadays in terms of supporting communities. But I also have another passion which is not relevant to engineering at all. I'm in the process of being qualified to become a professional chef, and who knows, in the future I can mix the two, or if one becomes more relevant than the other. But I have strong desires to keep developing that option further. And in terms of advice for me, I have struggled quite a lot through my development within university, getting the right job. I think my main advice would be that work hard in whatever you have in your mind. Sometimes you need to take opinion or advice from other people quite cautious. And the main fact is that take the positive of any opinion or consideration or advice. But the main thing is I definitely strong that you need to work hard in whatever desire you have in life. And sometimes you're gonna have you're gonna have obstacles in your career path, or even in your selection, whether if it's through uni, whether if it's for career or profession. But you have to understand that sometimes these kind of things that happens in life, as far if you are constant on what you want to do and where you want to get, is the most important bit. And I think that's pretty much what I just wanted to say. So if you have any question, or if you would just want to get in touch for a general chit chat, or if you have anything that you want to discuss with me, I would be more than happy to support, and hopefully that you can take something positive out of my personal experience. That's me, Elaine.
Thanks, Andreas. Next up, Bardia.
Hi everyone. So my name is Bardia. I'm a graduate process engineer at Wood. Fun fact about myself is that I've always been quite passionate about basketball, and I've captained multiple National League Division 1 teams across Scotland whilst at uni and at high school. So when I was in school, my aspirations were to do dentistry. Reason being, it's a well-paid job. You got extreme stability, and there's a sort of people push it on you. You know, your parents, family members, and teachers, etc. They're always pushing for courses such as medicine, dentistry, veterinary, law, those kind of subjects. So that's what I went for. And in my 5th year, I studied maths, English, chemistry, physics, biology. Ended up with 4 A's and a C, C being in English, of course. And then went on to 6th year to study advanced maths, advanced chemistry, and business management. One thing I will say at this point is your first year at university is essentially advanced hires. That's what you'll do in Scotland. That's what you will be studying. So if you do pick subjects like advanced higher maths, advanced higher chemistry, you're just going to repeat them again in university, and it sort of gives you a head start, and it allows you to enjoy your first year a lot more. So I would definitely push for people to go for those advanced hires if you can. So anyway, so when it came around to getting the job, the course offers in and getting my results back, I was rejected by everything. I didn't have any options. I didn't really know what else to do. My options were I could take a year out, go traveling or get a job, get some experience, or possibly study something dental related like dental nursing or something like that, and then apply again in the next year. But instead I decided, since dentistry wasn't something I was extremely passionate about, I instead wanted to do engineering. I looked at the options I had and ended up with chemical engineering. So I studied I went through UCAS's clearing system, which is basically all the courses that weren't filled up get put into this sort of bag where you can go in and select which ones you want to do. I went through that and picked chemical engineering at Strathclyde. So I went on. Luckily I got accepted, and I went on to study 5 years in an MEng at Strathclyde University, and spent 6 months of that living in Paris, where I was able to research fuel cell technologies and how we can make hydrogen a usable energy source for the future. In uni, so in chemical engineering, when you're in university, it's called chemical engineering, but when you leave, when you're in industry, we call it process engineering. I don't really know why the name changes, but it's chemical engineers are process engineers. And one common misconception is that chemical engineers know chemistry, or you need to be good at chemistry to do chemical engineering, and that's definitely not the case. I studied only 1 semester, so 3 months worth of chemistry out of my whole 5 years at university. We don't do very much chemistry. It's a lot of mathematics, it's a lot of physics, a lot to do with fluid dynamics, energy balances, and figuring out how we can go from designing processes, essentially, to go from raw materials to final products. So when I was in my final year of university, I applied to as many jobs as I could. I couldn't get any internships or placements when I was studying, so I thought I was sort of at a disadvantage at that point, because a lot of the students that I was at uni with had lots of work experience. But I was quite fortunate enough. I had applied to as many jobs as I could, and I had 2 offers by the end of my final year. One being with the Wood, which is the one that I ended up taking. And now I'm working as a graduate process engineer in the water engineering team with the Wood. So we're working on projects all around the UK and around the world. We've got projects in the Middle East and around Europe, where we look at water treatment. So that can be drinking water, how we get water from the rivers and boreholes into your tap water supply, and then also how we take the sewage waste that comes out your toilets and down your sinks, and what we do with that water, and how we treat that and get it back into the environment in a sustainable way. But as a chemical engineer in university, you don't really have to get into water engineering. That's what I've chosen to do at the moment. But chemical engineers are really involved in every industry in the world. Anything that requires a raw material to go to a final product essentially goes through a process engineer of some sort at one point or another, and whether that's automotive, energy, oil and gas, renewables, pharmaceuticals, food and drinks, anything, you name it, a process went through a process engineer to get there. So since I started in Wood in November 2019, and since then I've been working on quite big projects, and we've been getting stuck in straight away. And I think that's the good thing about engineering. You know, once you get a job, you're just stuck in straight away. They don't they treat you as if you're an experienced engineer, and you can work on very large projects, and you've got a lot of responsibility. And one thing that I've been working on is how we can get arsenic, which is a carcinogen. It can cause lung cancer, liver cancer, etc. if you were to ingest it. How we can get that out of drinking water supplies, because some places in Europe and in the UK do have quite high arsenic levels, and we're working on removing those from water supplies down in England to improve water supply. In terms of advice for anyone in high school coming into university, my advice is get to know technology, get to know how to use computers, get to know how to use softwares such as Microsoft Excel. You will be surprised at how dependent you'll be in using Microsoft Excel and Word, and you really need to know your way about them. And it's not just those applications, but many others like CAD, or we used Visio and Aspen, for example, were the technologies that we had to use. And I'd recommend, if you can do courses in programming or computing or anything like that, then definitely go for it, because that's the way the world's going at the moment, and we need to be able to use computers to drive the world forward. And that's it for me. Elaine, if anyone has any questions, then definitely feel free to contact me. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you want. If you want to drop me an email, Elaine, I'm happy for you to pass my email across as well.
That's great. Thank you, Bardia. And last but not least, we've got Bethany.
Hello everyone. So I'm last to go. I'm also a process engineer, as there's quite a few of us on this call. And as you can tell by my accent, I'm from the northeast of England. So I guess a fun fact about me is I actually was a founding member of the Gin Society at my university, which is quite a random activity, but it was fun at the time. So I guess I'll talk about when I first sort of started thinking about my career. So I was in year 11, which is how old you are when you're 16 in England. And I had to do a work experience as part of my school, and I got into Johnson Matthey through a family friend. And I went around the chemistry departments and the chemical engineering departments and looked at kind of what things that you did if you worked in chemistry, so in like labs and stuff like that, which I enjoyed both aspects and sort of considered both throughout my A-levels, which is how I ended up picking English language for the maths and chemistry. The English language was kind of because I wasn't really sure on what I wanted to do, which most people have said that they didn't really know what they wanted to do when you're 16, 17. You sort of just take a best guess, which that was my best guess at the time, which worked out quite well. And I still wasn't sure when it came to the end of year 12 what degree I wanted to do, or if I wanted to go to university, and I kind of explored all options. I looked at apprenticeships in accounting, and I went to several different universities and looked around at different courses. I looked at maths, I looked at various types of engineerings, and kind of just went to the lectures and said, okay, like, am I interested in this? Am I bored out my brains or what? And then I was also looking at the campuses themselves, so where I wanted to go to university. My big goal at the time was to go to the University of Cambridge, and I was fortunate enough that I went there for a week's course in maths, which made up my mind that it wasn't the right place for me. But the other girl that I went with from my school, she absolutely loved it. So it was a good experience for me because it made me decide on where I ended up. So I went to the University of Birmingham and got a master's in chemical engineering. And while I was there, I tried to make the most of it. So I was on several sports teams. I then became chair of the netball team while I was at university. for the engineering netball team, sorry, I also set up the gin society, as I said before. That was more so brought out of my housemates. We were like, oh, this would be fun to be with other people and like taste different gins. We ended up setting up a partnership with Sipsmith Gin, and we actually got a tour of their distillery, which from a chemical engineering point of view was amazing to see how it all worked. And they had an on-site chemical engineer, which I actually got to meet. And that was really interesting to see how that worked, because at university we'd studied mainly like big processes and the oil and gas industry and that kind of thing, and hadn't really looked at the food industry. So then when it came towards the end of my degree, when I was looking at what job I wanted or where I was going to apply, I sort of did the usual thing that most people do, is apply to everything and anywhere that was relevant to chemical engineering. Unfortunately, I wasn't successful in getting a job before I graduated. So when I graduated, I didn't have a job, and that did freak me out at the time. But everyone was saying to me, it'll all work out in the end, which it did. I found the job advert for the job I'm in now, so graduate post engineer in the Darlington office, which is close to home. And I was like, this will actually be perfect because it's in an industry that I'm familiar with, growing up on Teesside and having family that work in the industry. And also the person that hired me said that he worked on renewable technologies and it offered a great variety of industries to work in. So since joining in September 2019, I've worked on a wide variety of projects. One of the biggest projects that I worked on when I first started was for a carbon capture pipeline as part of the Net Zero Teesside project, which that was really interesting to see how a big project on a big scale is going to capture carbon dioxide from Teesside industries and store it underground. Since then, I've worked on projects in Saudi, projects in Hull, projects in Norway, all across the process and energy industries, so mainly in downstream industries, for example, like hydrogen production units that are part of refineries. Yeah, and that's one of the great things about Wood, is that I've been exposed to so many different projects within such a wide variety of industries, of different sectors of the oil and gas industries. And as pretty much everyone said, moving towards renewables. One of the projects that is currently ongoing within our office is a really new project to do with the circular economy, which is a trend that's happening within our office, and I'm excited for the future. But yeah, I guess my one bit of advice for everyone who is currently in school is to look at various universities. If you can attend virtual open days, they definitely help make your decision and help you decide where you want to go, what you want to study. And then when you get there, is to join a sports team or join any form of society. It really helps you to make friends. I know I felt super lonely when I first joined university, and being in society's definitely helped overcome that. Yeah, so I'll hand back over to you, Elaine.
That's great. Thanks, Holly. Sorry, Bethany. Lastly, we just want to wrap up the presentation. We hope you've really enjoyed today's presentation, found it useful. We'd welcome any feedback or questions that you have. Feel free to email myself. The address is on the screen at the moment, and I can make sure that your questions get to the appropriate speaker today, and we'll get a response back to you. So thank you and goodbye.